up, everybody? Welcome back to BT Willa's Garage. You're looking at our 2017 TRD Pro. Currently, it's got standard running boards on it that have that little chrome strip that pretty much looks out of place on the Pro. So what we're going to be doing is installing Shrockworks Rock Sliders. These rock sliders are great. They're bolt-on, they're rounded, they have a kick-out step. They've got everything that we were looking for. So we'll go ahead and get started with some pre-installation tips of the little stick nuts that come with it. You might want to paint those so they don't rust. There's some little things we'll dive into, but then we'll get into the installation. We're happy to bring you the first video to YouTube for the Shrockworks install. Looking forward to it, guys. So it's the night before the install, and I was going through all the parts, and everything was so professionally packaged. I was really impressed with that. One of the things I noticed is that these stick nuts are starting to rust a little bit already. So what I'm going to do is actually take a metal brush and get them cleaned up a little bit, and I'm going to hit them with some Rust-Oleum before we throw them on the truck tomorrow. So just to give you an idea, they just need to be coated with something. Don't want those rusting inside. So I suggest you do the same. A lot of people skip this step, but I'm going to go above and beyond. We're just using Rust-Oleum here, guys, to give them a quick little protective coat. Be sure to get the inside too. So Shrockworks is a company that's Texas-based. You can either pick your sliders up in person or you can have them shipped. They do keep inventory in stock for next day shipping, which is really, really nice and a big deciding factor for us. We wanted to get these on quickly. Each of the sliders weighs 45 pounds and is 1.75 by 120 wall tubing. When we look at these here, we did go with the dimpled plates, which also work as a step, which is important for our deciding factor when choosing whether to do the angled or the steps. Your finish options for the sliders are bare steel or powder coat. We went with powder coat because we don't plan on repainting these often. Guys that are going to be smashing rocks may want to take these off and paint them, in which case the bare steel may be a better fit, so you can choose your paint off the bat that you'll be using for touch-up. Another note there is the powder coat does cost a little bit more. I believe it's $65 more, so that may be a deciding factor for you. We did go with the bolt-on option here, as you can tell from the brackets and the holes. The reason we did that is so we can take them off if we ever need to for cleaning, or if we do need to repaint, we can easily take them off. The welded on option does offer a little bit more strength, but what we like about the Shrockworks is that it does mount to the bottom of the frame as well as the side, and a lot of competitor companies only mount on the side, so these offer extra strength in that regard. It does require drilling, which some other kits don't, but that's okay with us. So we're underneath the truck and we're using a 13 millimeter just to take the stock running boards off. We've just got a little plastic bag that we're keeping all of our parts in, so if we ever want to sell them or put them back on, we'll know where they are. We'll just tape it to the... So we just popped the other side off as well. Same process with that 13 millimeter. And the truck's already looking a lot more aggressive without that chrome strip on those running boards. It'll look even better once we get the sliders on here momentarily. So here we've got some paint prep. This is Unisolve by Lawson. What we're going to be doing is just prepping the frame to make sure we've got a nice clean surface to mount to. Here in a minute we're also going to be removing these plastic frame body plugs in order to get a clean mount. We don't want that causing us to not be able to mount flush to the frame. So we're just using a small screwdriver to remove the plug that you see here. As you can see, we line the sliders up to see where the mounting points were going to be, and we're going to need to gain access there. Just this round plug's coming out. We'll keep you posted with the other ones that we take out. We're going to need to get those stick nuts in, which is why we're going to need access inside the frame. We just popped out this piece here as well to the left of the circle. It's kind of oblong. Now we're taking off the closest circle frame plug to the front of the vehicle to have access. We're going to clean that up with some solvent. While you're underneath your truck like this, it's a good time to spray some fluid film inside the frame itself. We've got this 360-degree nozzle with obviously a little tube on it, and we're going to run it through the frame real quick just to give it a coating while we're underneath it. So since this is a 360-degree nozzle, all you've got to do is feed it in as far as you can, spray it while you're pulling it back towards you, and it's going to coat the entire inside of the frame. You see it coming out there. So you can buy this product on Amazon. I'll put a link in the description for a case. It's great to keep around and typically protects your vehicle in the south for nearly a year. If you're in the north, it might only protect for 4 to 6 months. So these 4Runners have a ton of holes in the frame, and it makes it for really easy access to get this fluid film all around, as you can see. But again, not required for the rock slider job, but we wanted to give you guys an extra little tip. This will help keep your 4Runner living for many decades to come if you take care of the frame. All right, guys, so we have cleaned the frame, fluid filmed the frame, which again is optional, and we've laid the sliders up on the lift here. Now we realize not everybody has access to a lift, so this can easily be done on the ground. You might just have to bend your back a little bit more. The reason we're using the lift is to be able to show you detailed shots. Next, what we're going to do is put the sliders up on these jack stands, these high jack stands, and be able to mock it up so we know where our holes need to be drilled and the existing holes that we're going to tap into. So we've lined up the sliders, and this 1.25 thread here, we're going to actually run a tap through it in order to make it perfect prior to the installation. We're going to loosely install these bolts, guys, so that we don't tighten them all the way down before we get we're going to tighten the back up first before we do a full torque.
And just, we're learning, but had we known, we would have ran this tap before we got it all lined up. But, you know, we'll clean them out on the other side before we get this in the way.
So we pulled some paint and crud out with the tap, and that's why that bolt didn't want to go through. So this 1.25 tap may be necessary for your install. We'll put a link in the description for that. So we used the thread tap to clean out the holes, and we just tested it, and the bolts actually go through by hand now. So just be aware your frame holes may be a little dirty and grimy or have paint in them and need to be cleaned. So we're putting the locking washer toward the head of the bolt, the washer in the middle, and we're going to take a little bit of Loctite, and we've just got a stick of Loctite here. Just put a little bit on the threads, and we're going to loosely install these. And I'll put a link to the Loctite as well in the description if you guys need any of that prior to the job. You can pick it up on Amazon, but what we're going to do now is thread these gold bolts in. So the top two holes get the gold bolts. That silver bolt's going to go on the bottom where it connects underneath the transmission on that slanted part. So we'll go ahead and get these threaded in and pick you back up. After all those Christmas dinners, whether we hit a rock with it or not, if I'm going to be stepping on it, we might need to reinforce it. Now guys, we're pretty confident these come from the factory threaded correctly, but we're actually going to run the tap through these stick nuts. Since I painted them, we don't want any of that Rust-Oleum to keep us from being able to screw it in, especially with the fact that it's not as simple as just screwing in. You're trying to you're trying to use a stick nut, and you'll see what we mean here in a second. All right, that one looks good. We're going to go ahead and try to get the rear mounted up. Now with the rear, we're going to be using 3 silver bolts. So you're not going to use the gold bolts back here on the rear because they're not threaded from the factory. So what we've done is we've got access through this cover that we took off earlier. Now when we put this cover back on, we're going to have to trim it, just trim off the side and no longer have it round but have it flat in order to put that plug back. And we've also got access on the back end here, as you can see right here, which is a hole, and also through the bottom if we need to. I don't think we're going to be able to fit that stick nut. I have seen some people round the edges of stick nuts in order to get this job installed, but we may or may not need to do that. We'll keep you posted. So we're just kind of fishing that stick nut in through the back, keeping it turned to the threaded side, and turning the bolt on the left. I hope you can see that until we get it caught. Here's how that process looks, guys. It's not quick and simple. It can be a little bit aggravating, but just have patience and keep playing around with it until you get that nut threaded on. So just try a few different angles. You can bend that stick nut however you need to and use whatever hole you need to. I'm not sure if there's a proper way or not. A few different instructions show different ways. So I'm taking this footage by the slim chance you can actually see that stick nut. I think you can. There it is. So you see that nut on a stick? We've got it started, and the way that that's working is over here, the stick of the nut is coming out right there of the frame. Now this is easier done as a two-person job. I literally held the nut and I had my dad screwing the bolt in right over here, and everything worked out perfect. So just take your time, bend the stick nut, and you can make it happen. So we actually used this back entrance here for the bottom stick nut. So we came in and the angle made it to where the bottom was flat. And really this is a two-person job. It makes it a lot easier with two people. So we accessed one of the stick nuts, the top nut, on the side of the frame through here. And we accessed the bottom nut on the side of the frame as well as the bottom of the frame from the back side. You may be able to do it in other ways too. So next what we're going to do is drill a pilot hole on the right oblong hole. We want to use that so that we have a little bit of wiggle room. Next we're going to drill it with the 3/8 bit in order to fit the bolt in the stick nut. There we go. And then what we're going to do is actually take this stick and find a way to either get it inside or cut it off in a way that we can use it in the future. So we did the bottom first so that it was able to get flush with the frame. And now what we're going to do is the bottom over here. This is that 13 millimeter. And now we're just going to snug up the top 4 bolts and this side will be done. So whenever you're putting them in, you'll notice that this one needs to be trimmed. So what we're going to do is just slice off a corner of it so that we can still cap the frame right there and be able to fit this. Obviously it's not going to fit in without cutting off a piece about that big. So I'm going to go ahead and make that cut now. Okay. So all we're going to do, we're going to take it down about right there using this grinding wheel, and we're going to try it out. We can always take more off, we can't add it back. Here's our piece that we just trimmed. Only needed one try on that one. All right, so that's going to keep our frame from getting all sorts of junk in it and keep it plugged up.
Okay, so the disappearing
stick nut.
Actually, if I'm wise, I'll stop right there because it's flush, and if you ever need to take that off, there it is.
Boom. Here's an angle that you guys may not see often, but this is the door ding protection that these offer. We're underneath the truck right now, and you can see that the slider clearly sticks out further than the door of the truck. So anybody that door dings us is not going to be happy, and our doors will look fine. We might get a little ding in the slider. That's what they're there for. Alright guys, so now we're moving on to the driver's side. Just realize that a lot of the instructions online currently available do the driver's side first. The reason for that may be because it's a little bit more difficult. We've got a skid plate here on the gas tank that needs to be removed, and then there's also a strap holding the gas tank up that needs to be removed. You do need to have a jack underneath it. A floor jack will work if you're not on a lift. Obviously you need a high jack if you're on a lift. So this side, we're going to do the same thing. What he is doing is currently going through with a tap and just cleaning out the holes that we think we're going to end up using. We're also going to spray it down with some of that paint prep just to get everything cleaned up. Here's a random tip for you. Whenever you're tapping that top threaded hole, you'll find that your tap tool, as it came, probably doesn't fit. So if you take a small wrench, find one that fits your tap tool, you can do like we just did and like you just saw, and still be able to tap those out so that you don't have any problems. Here's our setup here. So that's how you get to it. Guys, while we had the 4Runner up on the lift, I wanted to point out that for preventative maintenance, it might not be a bad idea to locate the 3 zerk fittings. There may be more, but I'm pretty sure there's only 3. There's one right here on the rear drive shaft. I've got 2 here at the universal joint. You've got 1, and then you've got 1 right here. And then on the front drive shaft, it's the same situation. But it might not be a bad idea for you guys to go around and just hit those real quick with a little bit of grease while you got it up in the air. For the greasing job, we're using this Lincoln electric grease gun, and we're going to hit those 6 zerk points while we got it up in there.
Here.
Yeah. When you hear that crackling sound is when you want to stop. That's it, pushing the seal out. We got Alright guys, so we're on the driver's side, and what we did is we are using the flathead screwdriver to pop off this first frame plug, and toward the back what we're going to be doing is right underneath this bracket here that you can see for the emergency brake line, we're going to be taking off the circular cap and the oblong cap, and then I'm going to be using this paint prep spray to clean up the frame. You want to be pretty careful with these if you can. They are known to break. Alright guys, so just like on the passenger side, we've mocked up the kit. Everything seems to be lined up perfectly. We're going to use those 2 gold bolts here, the M125s, and then we'll use the other silver bolt on the bottom. Same thing as before. Now here's where it gets different. Is on the right side now we've got the gas tank skid that's going to need to come off, as we mentioned before, these 3 bolts. But wanted to show you that on the bottom portion where we get that strength from having not only the side bracket but the bottom bracket, we're actually going to pick up that gas tank strap bolt that I showed you earlier, it looks like. So I just wanted to show you that really quick. We also at the top of this bracket have another hole which is going to be used for this bracket here. Which is going to be used for this bracket, and we'll get that figured out here shortly, but just wanted to show you guys that real quick. So we've got the 3 bolts that were in the gas tank skid plate out. The reason you need to take those out is because the gas tank strap bolt is so long. As you can see here, it's required to pull down on that skid, and we're actually needing to loosen the jack to let that down. Now this gas tank here is currently about halfway full. That means we have over 60 pounds of gas in it. Each gallon of gas weighs 6 pounds, so just be aware when you let that strap out, you need to have a nice jack. You know, if you're on the ground, just use a regular floor jack and just have that supported. Try to have your tank empty, but we're going to go ahead and get that out, and that bolt right there is what allows us to mount the bottom of the sliders too. So we're going to run that through.
Maybe we'll leave the bolt in, so
yeah, that's a good point. We may just leave this bolt in, slide it up, and then see if we can't get it in there without
trying to get it started back with that in the way, I believe.
Exactly. Perfect. All right, we'll keep going. So we're getting the gas strap bolt started first over there. It's got a little bit of play in it to be able to get it started. We're just going to use the existing hardware on it and see if it works.
All right, I've got this tool special little hook tool. I'm gonna try to pull the bracket your way. Got to move your finger right. There you go. Try to release some of that pressure because the gas and the. Am I getting you? The pressure from the gas and the tank's pulling. Trying to pull it towards the passenger side. We're relieving that pressure, hopefully. Okay, I won't get it completely tight till we get the rest of it going, but we're almost there.
So now that we got the gas tank strap bolt loosely snugged up, we're going to loosely snug up the front gold bolts. So again, we've got the locking washer and the regular washer on there. We also use Loctite to make sure it stayed in place. Next, we're going to move to the rear and we're going to mess around with those stick nuts, and then we'll come back to the front and get this. All right, so we just confirmed that the 2 bolts do line up on the back. As you know, we just did the front. I've got 2 stick nuts left in my hand, and what I'm going to be doing is bending these in order to push them through, and having a friend or a second hand try to get them tightened down. Now this part's really hard to record, but I just want to show you guys, you know, these sticks, you can bend them however you need. So the goal is to get the back of the stick nut with the nut side, you know, you want the flat side facing the frame where you're screwing your bolt into. So that's how that works. So I'm going to bend this as I need, get it in, and it's going to tighten up with that flat side straight against the inside of the slider frame. All right. All right. So we have, we actually were able to use the gold screw on the bottom there. We stuck the 1.25 inch die through, and we're about to hit it with the impact. And what you're going to see here, yep. As you just saw, we just got done tightening down the driver's side rock slider. Everything's in place. There's no need to put any more of the frame plugs in because we covered it up with the rock slider mount points. So we're good to go. We're going to let it down and take a look at how it looks in person on the ground.